Meeting to order at 7:30. Roll call, please.
Mr. Simons.
Here.
Mr. Freehan is here. Mr. Boda.
Yes.
Mr. Batsalis.
Here.
Mr. Horn.
Here.
Ms. Babel.
Here.
Mr. Blackstock is absent.
Okay, thank you. Next, would you follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? I just have one. I would like to make it under old business 1A would be resolution 26-2019. I'd like to put that in there under 1A. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, a motion to accept the agenda as presented with the changes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we approve the agenda with the addition of the 1A. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of November 18, 2019. They're in your packet.
Excuse me, I'll make a motion to, if there's no additions or deletions, that we approve the minutes of November 18th.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported that we approve the minutes of November 18, 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to talk about anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have C1, November 2019 Park Commission meeting minutes. If there's no questions or on the consent agenda, motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion that we could accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
Support.
It's been moved and supported.
Ms. Babel, support.
Okay. That we accept the consent agenda as received. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to disbursements, we have invoices of $19,192.12. We have accounts payable of $99,670.57. We have payroll direct deposit of $36,312.35. We have EFT payments of $11,978.53. And we have a tax account of $1,381.81 for a total disbursement of $168,535.38.
I'll make a motion, we pay, excuse me, disbursements in the amount of $168,535.38.
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a support for paying the bills in the sum of $168,535.38. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons.
Yes.
Freehan votes yes. Mr. Boda.
Yes.
Ms. Babel.
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Batsalis.
Yes.
All yes.
Motion carries, we pay the bills. Now, moving on to old business, we have the St. Clair Power Plant property taxes and the new Bell River, or Blue Water Energy Center. Did you want to present anything, Gary, or
I can just state briefly these.
would you go to the podium so we
Sure,
can?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So these are the two agreements that have been hammered out with DTE that reflect what I presented before. The bills went over the numbers. We got their spreadsheets. He went over them very carefully, the parcels, the glide path that we're talking about to make sure everything matches. The one thing that is not part of this is the blue water plant, because that's not part of the settlement of the existing plant. But what I also asked them for was their spreadsheet on how they valued the blue water plant to get this chart that you got copies of, showing the blue is the blue water going up in value. So we know what the value is, and then Bill will place the partial assessment on that for, at the end of this year, for 2020. And then that will continue to go up until it's fully on the rolls, fully built and operational. So it'll take a step up this year, a bigger step the next year, bigger step the year after that, and then finally the last year it'll be at the full value. The other thing you obviously see is there are two agreements in front of you, and the reason is what they do is when they assess a power plant, they assess it as the value of the plant and the property it sits on and it uses to make it run. And part of that's in your township and part of it's in China Township. So they have to sign your agreement and you have to sign their agreement because Bell River is also partly in this township. So that's why you have the two of them. So usually what clients want to know is, well, what could go wrong? And the only thing that could negatively impact this agreement is if they close the plant even earlier than they have planned on. Obviously, I can't guarantee you they won't, but I don't think it's possible that they can, because they got to get the blue water plant fully up and running before this one can ramp down. So if it was stretching out like Bell River for 10 years, I could say, it could go a year either way, and, because that's a long time to look out a decade. But you're talking 3 years, so it's a pretty short fuse, if you will. And so I don't think it's likely that'll happen. Once again, as I said before, I thought it was good to work with them. They were looking for a resolution that would make it work for the township, this glide path thing. So the old one goes off slowly versus falling off a cliff. And that's how it would really happen if this went to appraisal and we were going to have a tax case. The existing plant, the St. Clair plant, wouldn't go down gradually. It's worth what it's worth, and it would go in like off a cliff, and you'd get hurt bad. So anyways, I think it's a good deal. DTE was great to work with. They were real problem solvers and looking almost more. They didn't look as much what the plant was worth. They looked at the money that would come into the local taxing jurisdictions to make sure it was workable for everybody. And in the world of tax cases, it doesn't happen that way very often. We've had big box cases and other things, and they don't really care. They don't care what happens to you or your client or how much money they lose, and DTE really cared. So it was a pleasure working with them, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, and that's it.
Do you have any questions for?
Gary, under material change, it says in the event a change in law occurs that materially affects the basis for this agreement, what kind of law would change that might affect that?
Well, as to the St. Clair plant, none that I can think of. The material change provision is because of the Bell River plant. And so what happened down there is industrial personal property gets no school tax, and it's not taxed with a school tax millage in Michigan. So that's the state school tax and the state operating, which is 24 mills. It's 18 and 6. And so what we did in the Bell River plant, which is in that agreement, is we got an engineering study done to determine what was real and what was personal. And that's something that's been in the law in Michigan for a long time, that industrial personal property doesn't get hit with a school tax millage. So what we did, but the local jurisdiction gets that personal property tax, but at the state level they don't. And so that's why that provision was put in there. If all of a sudden the legislature passed a new law that said industrial personal property was no longer going to be exempt from the school tax, that would really cause a big problem, not here, but for the Bell River plant. So there's nothing I can think of that's going to change anything that would be a material change in the law that would impact this settlement for this township, for this plant.
Not really a question, but I noticed in the proposed assessed valuations, taxable value, for the first 3 years for the portion of the Bell River plant within East China Township, the numbers stay the same.
Right.
They didn't decrease them. Was there any particular reason that they didn't appreciate those particular properties?
Yeah, the reason is their glide path is 5 and yours is 3. So theirs will go, so let's say this plant was going to be open 5 years instead of 3. What would happen is then the angle you go down at is less, and it starts higher, stays higher, and then, and then you glide further out. So that's the only reason that theirs looks different than
Yeah, I
yours.
thought it was interesting that they didn't devalue. That's fine with me. I don't have any problem.
No, I tell you what, they were great to deal with down there too. It's if they wanted to be people that didn't care, it could have been devastating. Somewhat for you, because the St. Clair plant would drop off fast in the beginning, but then in a couple years later, then the Blue Water plant would ramp up and you'd be okay. But if they wanted to play hardball down in China Township, it would be real ugly. So, but they did. They were great to work with.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for Gary?
So what I'll need are 4 copies. I don't need them right away because whenever you can get them to me, I need 4.
Of the resolution?
No, I need a copy of the resolution and then 4 signed agreements. Because I got to have your signatures on it, then I got to get it down to China.
Yeah,
in 2
China's
weeks.
doing it on the 16th.
Yeah, 16.
Bill, would you like to go up and speak a little bit about, on the assessing? You are our assessor.
I tell you, Bill's been a great help through this whole thing.
Yeah, I know Bill's done a lot in it.
As said previously, and just to kind of give you an overview, we do have a slight reduction over the next 3 years in the current plan that goes down, but at the same time, the new plant's going up. And so every year, beginning next year, you're going to have a significant increase in taxes from the DT Energy plant between what's going up with the new plant and the old plant. And at the end of the 5-year period, or at the end 4 years, you're going to be collecting more than double what you're collecting today. So this is a great agreement for us. It makes sense. If we're going to pick a fight, we want to do it with the new plant, not the old plant. And I don't expect that to happen because we've got them to give us their values of what they expect to spend here on the chart. So I don't see any major deviations from that. We're in a really good place here.
Okay, is there any questions for Bill? This is Bill Griffin, our assessor.
I definitely would recommend approval of the agreement.
You've worked hand in hand with Gary throughout the whole process with
For
DT.
the last year, we worked hard on this, and it's worked out wonderful, because it could have been a lot tougher. But as Gary said from the beginning, the way they value plants, the old coal plant, the cost to replace, it's gonna be the cost of a new plant, not what a coal plant costs to replace. So it's a loser. It's not worth going through a tribunal process. Would be devastating, costly, and we wouldn't win. I would not recommend it. But in the new plant, if it ever came to that, that's a winner. We can do well there. I don't think that'll happen, though. I think DT has been pretty straightforward from the beginning, and it's worked out very well.
And this is a 4-year agreement, and after the 4 years, then we will renegotiate wherever we stand at that time as far as what's going to be done with the St. Clair
But
plant.
it's a 3-year agreement, so after 3 years, the 4th year, we'll lose the value of the coal plant completely, but we'll have the new plant on board.
I'm
And at
looking
that
at-
point,
I'm looking at that.
we're so far ahead of the game as compared to where we are today.
So this will go on until 2023?
This goes till 2022, 2023, and 24 is all new plant. There'll be no value left for the coal plant in 23 and 24. But it'll all be new plant, which is, you're talking more than double the value we're at right now.
Yeah, if you look at this, so you got the kind of brown part at the bottom is the old plant. That's 20, it's still there. 21, it's still there. 22, it is. 2021, 22, and then it's gone.
Right.
And it's all blue, which is the blue water plant.
Blue water plant, which if we were to get in a dispute, that's the one we want to be in dispute with.
This is the ones that we collected when we had the
Yeah.
closed session. All right, does anybody have anything for Bill then?
Thank both you gentlemen very much. Thank you. I know it's a tough
I know there's
process
been a
and-
lot of meetings you guys have attended for, well, I attended a couple of them.
Good job.
And I think I talked to people in China, and it sounds like it's a go there. I mean, they still have to vote on it, but, and it's pending their agreement too. They have to sign their agreement, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, if they didn't agree, I'm certain I would still get an agreement done for you, but the deal they have on the table, that it would be extremely foolish to.
Okay,
Engineer report worked out in their favor, it could have worked out the opposite of that, but it worked out in their favor, so that was good.
good.
So they're on board, China right now?
Sure think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know how they're gonna vote,
Right,
but
right.
from the talking to them, it sounds like it's a possibility. Okay, so I guess we have no more on the St. Clair Power Plant property taxes, so then we'll move on to Old Business 1A, which would be the resolution. Do we need a motion to have us sign, the clerk, and to sign this agreement? Or would the resolution do the same
I
thing?
think the resolution, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, so item one will be for information, and then item 1A will be for action.
Okay. And we'll just print you up 4 copies of it then and
Okay.
bring it up or get it to you.
You've looked at the resolution?
Pardon me?
You've looked at the resolution?
Nice job.
Or so, under old business, item 1A would be the resolution 26-2019. Bob, would you like to?
I'd move to approve Resolution 26, 2019, authorization to sign agreement between DTE Electric Company and East China Charter Township.
I'll support.
I will now read the resolution. This is, the wording of the resolution is, whereas DTE Electric Company operates the St. Clair and Bell River power plants, parts or all of which are located in both East China and China Charter Townships, and whereas East China Charter Township has taxing authority over DTE Electric Company vacant, improved, and personal property located within East China Charter Township with a total taxable value in 2019 of $220,010,497. And whereas DTE Electric Company has filed with the Michigan Public Service Commission plans to retire St. Clair Power Plant Units 1, 2, 3, and 6 in or around 2022, and plans to retire Unit 7 in 2023. And whereas DTE Electric Company has filed with the Michigan Public Service Commission plans to retire the Bell River Power Plant Unit Number 1 in or around 2029, and Unit Number 2 in or around 2030. And whereas East China Township acknowledges that the St. Clair and Bell River coal-fired power plants and their support facilities depreciate in value for tax purposes as they age or are closed. And whereas East China Township has sought assurances and assistances from DTE so that its budget and essential services could be maintained with some certainty for its residents. And whereas DTE Electric Company has proposed actual values, taxable values for company-owned property in both East China and China Charter Townships for the St. Clair Power Plant for the 2020, 2021, and 2022 tax years, And whereas DTE Electric Company has proposed actual values, taxable values for the company-owned property in both East China and China Charter Townships for the Bell River Power Plant for the 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 taxable years. And whereas DTE Electric Company has submitted proposed agreements for both the St. Clair and Bell River Power Plants that specify that East China Charter Township will not impose any additional property taxes or special assessments that are above those specified in the agreement. And whereas in the event DTE retires one or more of the St. Clair Power Plant units in tax year 2020 or 2021, and that the specifying unit is no longer intended to be reserved for generating purposes, the agreement would be void and no longer enforceable. And whereas the agreement specifies that in the event of a change in law that materially affects the basis for the agreement, the parties agree to negotiate in good faith for a replacement agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the East China Charter Township Board of Trustees does hereby authorize the Township Supervisor, Clerk, and Assessor to sign an agreement between DTE Electric Company and East China Charter Townships stipulating various taxing conditions as well as the following actual values, taxable values for the St. Clair Power Plant property located within the township. The actual taxable values for parcel 74-18-051-001-000 for 2020 is $146,532,495. In 2021, it's $98,909,434. In 2022, it's $79,371,768. Parcel 74-18-051-001-800, 2020 value is $304,566. In 2021, it's $205,582. In 2022, it's $164,973. Parcel 74-18-999-0010-100, in 2020, it's $3,769,473. In 2021, it's $2,544,394. And in 2022, it's $2,041,798. Be it further resolved that the East China Charter Township Board of Trustees does hereby authorize the Township Supervisor, Clerk, and Assessor to sign an agreement between DTE Electric Company and East China Charter Township stipulating various taxing conditions as well as the following actual values, taxable values for the Bell River Power Plant property located within the township. The actual values and taxable values for parcel 74-18-018-1004-000 for 2020 is $27,618. For 2021, it's $27,618. For 2022, it's $27,618. For 2023, it's $22,357. And for 2024, it's $17,361. Parcel 74-18-018-3002-000, for 2020, it's $40,450. For 2021, it's $40,450. For 2022, it's $40,450. For 2023, it's $32,745. For 2024, it's $25,426. For parcel 74-18-051-000-100, for 2020, it's $14,050,111. For 2021, it's $14,050,111. For 2022, it's $14,050,111. For 2023, it's $11,373,899. And for 2024, it's $8,831,498. The final parcel is parcel 74-18-51-000-200. For 2020, the actual value is $163,114. For 2021, it's the same, $163,114. For 2022, it's $116,114. For 2023, it's $132,045. And for 2024, it's $102,529. All resolutions or parts of this resolution, insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution and the same, are hereby rescinded.
Thank you, Bob, for doing that long read. So we have a motion and we have a support for the resolution. We should do a roll call vote.
Yes. Okay, just one.
Any further questions on this? Everybody understands? Okay.
I included all of that because what we're doing in resolutions now is trying to stipulate, outside of actual agreements, we're trying to stipulate dollar amounts so that it's in a formal resolution. That's why it's long, and that's why we included all those numbers in there. So I thank you for bearing with me.
One question I have, Bill, now the Dean Station, that's a separate ID number for that property that the Dean Station's on? So this is nothing to do with Dean Station? Okay. Because that's going to stay in existence, I believe. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Freehan votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos?
Yes.
Mrs. Babel?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll get a hold of Bill to sign it.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, you wanna, when do you wanna do that?
Probably tomorrow or Wednesday.
Just give me a call or let me know when and I'll be there.
Okay. All right.
Whenever you guys
Spell
need.
check.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
I wrote this at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
It's got an extra.
They took a copy of it today.
Oh, okay. Thursday, I'll Jamie, Darryl will be here.
You got a form, I gotta sign.
I knew that would be kind of lengthy.
I got through it.
You sure did.
Thanks for
Good
doing
job.
that again. Okay, moving on to
Thank you.
old business 2.
Give me a holler when you wanna take.
I'll call you. All right, thank you. Revision of Code of Ordinance, Chapters 453, 17, and 24. Is that you, Bob?
Yeah, it's, when we reviewed the action that the board took at the last meeting, we reviewed the procedures, and the recommendation is, when you change an ordinance, the recommendation is that you follow essentially the same procedures that you follow in adopting an entirely new ordinance. So what those procedures are is to introduce an ordinance at a board meeting and have the board approve the introduction of the ordinance, and then publish the new language in the newspaper of public record, and then at a subsequent, and in that publication also mention at what time, at what meeting the board would consider changes in the ordinance, and then third, to adopt the resolution at a board meeting after that publication has occurred. We can consider your your adoption of the ordinance changes at the previous meeting, the introduction, and we have published in newspaper of public record, in the Times Herald, the changes, the old language and the new language. And so what we have for you tonight is an adoption by resolution of the changes in the ordinance.
Want me to read it, or?
I can. So I would like to offer a motion to adopt Resolution 24-2019, revision to Code of Ordinances, Administrative Text, Chapters 453, Sections 17 and 24.
I'll support.
Okay. The language for the resolution is, whereas the language of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 453, Section 17, sewer bills needs to be revised based on a cost analysis of a pool sewer credit, and whereas the language of Code of Ordinances, Chapter 453, Article 2, Section 24, separate water meter for underground irrigation needs to be revised due to changes in billing practices, and whereas the current wording of the affected portions of Chapter 453, Section 17 and 24, as well as the proposed changes, have been published in a newspaper of public record on November 27, 2019, together with a notice as to the date, time, and location at which the changes would be considered. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees adopts the following changes to the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 453, Section 17, sewer bills, paragraph C1, It would be the deletion of, upon installation of a new pool and/or the replacement of a damaged liner which requires a total pool fill. Proper notification must be given to the township as to proof of said purchase and of said usage, including the dates and beginning, ending meter readings. That would be replaced by the language for C1. The language is as provided for elsewhere in this article. Be there further resolved that the Board of Trustees adopts the following changes in Chapter 453, Section 24, separate water meter for underground irrigation. It deletes Section B, backflow prevention device. A backflow prevention device shall be installed by a duly licensed plumber and inspected and approved by the DPW prior to use. This is replaced by Section B, backflow prevention device. A backflow prevention device shall be installed by a duly licensed plumber, tested by a certified tester, inspected and approved by the township plumbing inspector prior to use. In Section D, that's deleted. What's deleted is meter readings. Water meters shall be read on or about May 1st and November 1st of each year. This is replaced by meter readings. Irrigation water meters shall be read quarterly. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution and the same are hereby rescinded.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So we have a motion and a support for this resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I guess we do roll call again. Roll call.
Mrs. Babel,
Yes.
Freehand votes yes. Mr. Simons,
Yes.
Mr. Boda,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalos.
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
all yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to old business 3, coastal management planning grant with resolution of support. Cindy, do you want to do this, or do you want me to? This was the, where we're partnering up with DTE. They're willing to pay half of the $25,000 to do this. It has to do with the future uses of the St. Clair Power Plant properties. Any questions for Cindy on it, or do you know what we all know what we're talking about here?
Again,
I
it's
guess I
another
could-
grant formality. They require a resolution to be submitted.
To be
with the
sent with
application.
in order to get the
Yep.
match money.
So last meeting, we just kind of prepped you, gave you all the background information, and now we're going to get that formal resolution in place.
Does the board have any questions about what we're doing here?
That's nice of the Edison to pay for half of that too, and that really helped us out also.
I think they can also change these, weight trim,
What's that?
get rid of weight trim
Yeah, Wade Trim's our planner.
was.
Our,
We don't have many.
we have Wade Trim as our planner.
The question I had, on your cover letter, it mentions $13,750. The anticipated commitment from East China Township.
I think we checked on that, didn't we, Cindy? And they said they would go the extra.
Right, so the half of the cash match is $12,500, and then the preparation of the grant by
Is
Wade
$1,200.
Trim is a total of $2,500 to be split by both ourselves and DTE. So is my math correct?
Yeah, that's right, it'd be 12,500 plus the 1250.
Yeah, we checked with them, they said they
They
would split
agreed that
that
they
with
would
us too,
also-
so.
Right.
That's where you're
Right.
getting the 13.
Okay, that's, I was just looking in the resolution, yeah.
The total project is $50,000. Well, more than that with the engineering.
They only need to see the match portion in the resolution. The actual agreement with us for Wade Trim to prepare the grant application wouldn't be considered part of the grant.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the resolution included everything we needed
Yep.
to include, so.
All right.
Want to read that, Larry?
Yeah, you want to? I got a little cold.
You want a motion for it?
He's going to read the resolution.
Resolution 25-2019. The following resolution was offered by myself and supported by
I'll support.
Debbie?
whereas the East China Charter Township is located along St. Clair River, a waterway connecting Lake Huron and Lake St. Clair, and whereas East China Township has a substantial interest in ensuring appropriate and sustainable land use and development of lands along and near the St. Clair River, and whereas the lands along the St. Clair River in the central portion of the township in the vicinity of River Road, M29, and Recor Road, encompassing both public and private properties, including the DTE St. Clair Power Plant site, would greatly benefit from a riverfront development planning study to promote sustainability, economic development, vibrancy, and social welfare. And whereas a riverfront redevelopment planning study would inform and engage citizens and stakeholders to formulate a long-range redevelopment vision for the St. Clair Riverfront, and whereas DT Energy has committed to participation as a project partner, creating a unique opportunity for the township to coordinate with a major stockholder to envision the preferred future of the riverfront, and whereas grant funding is available from the U.S. Department of Commerce through the Coastal Management Program, and whereas the total cost to undertake the St. Clair Riverfront redevelopment plan is estimated at $50,000, 50% of which would be funded through the Coastal Management Program, and whereas DTE has made a financial commitment to contribute $12,500 to the project and representing half of the required local match. Now therefore be it resolved that the East China Township Board of Trustees approves the submission of the grant application to the Michigan Coastal Management Program in the amount of $25,000 to undertake the St. Clair Riverfront redevelopment plan and commits township funds in the amount of $12,500 to complete the required 50% local match if the project is funded. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution and the same are hereby rescinded.
Okay, thank you. So we have a resolution, and we have a support. Is there any further questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Patsalas,
Yes.
Mr. Boda,
Yes.
Mr. Simons,
Yes,
Freehan votes yes, Mr. Babel.
Yes.
motion carries. I think it's a good thing we start looking at that. It's being active. All right, moving on to new business. 1, election inspectors pay raise. Bob?
As the cover letter says, we surveyed, or one of the clerks did a survey of all of the municipalities and townships within St. Clair County to get an idea of what the current rate of pay is. And as my cover letter indicates, that the average hourly pay currently is $11.50 per hour for election inspectors, and chairpersons is $13.50. I'm sorry, is $11.25 per hour with a maximum of $15 per hour for election inspectors and $12.50 per hour with a maximum of $20 per hour for precinct chairpersons. A number of people indicated that they were in the process of looking at actually increasing what we pay people. And when you look at for a 15-hour to 16-hour day, that's really not a lot of money that we pay people for working those long hours and trying to process the number of people that we do in the course of an election. If you are a certified election inspector, you can work for any township or any municipality in the state of Michigan. And consequently, we're in competition to get the best people that we can to make our elections work as well as they can. So we're proposing an increase for the hourly pay for election inspectors to $11.50 per hour, and to the chairpersons to $13.50 per hour. And I'm also recommending that we pay for training, it's usually 2 to 2.5 hour training, a flat rate of $30 for that 2 to 2.5 hours, and that's without mileage. We will be training all of our election inspectors for the March 10th election, and they will all need to be trained again because by the county or by the state in order to be certified, because you're only certified for 2 years, and all of their certifications expire this year. So they're all going to have to go to training this year. We have budgeted for all of these proposed increases in our 2020 budget, and I should mention that as we consolidate precincts, we'll actually be using only one precinct, so we'll have 6 people in the in-person voting precinct, and we'll have 6 people running the absentee voter counting board, which is a separate operation in another part of the building. So we'll actually be using 12 people instead of 16. So the net cost of this increase actually will be
Going down.
it'll be going down.
Yeah.
So I'm proposing, I would like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 27, 2019, an increase in election inspector and chairperson's pay.
I'll support that motion.
Okay.
No, they work an awful long time.
Yeah, it is a long time.
I'll read the resolution itself, and as I said before, we're trying to, in all of these pay things that we've been doing, we want to do them by resolution. Resolution 27, 2019, whereas paying a competitive hourly rate is critical to recruiting and retaining quality election inspectors and chairpersons, and whereas East China Township's current hourly rate of pay for election inspectors and chairpersons is well below the current county average for a 15-hour-plus workday, and whereas the township's pay rate for election inspectors and chairpersons has not been increased in at least 6 years, and whereas the township clerk has recommended new pay rates for election inspectors and chairpersons which are within the proposed 2020 budget and which will have a total cost less than the previous elections because precinct consolidation requires fewer inspectors to be employed. Now therefore be it resolved that the East China Township Board of Trustees hereby approves an hourly rate of $11.50 for election inspectors, $13.50 for chairpersons, and a flat rate of $30 without mileage for all required state, county, or local training sessions. Be it further resolved that these pay rates shall go into effect on the date that this resolution is adopted. All resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution be and the same are hereby rescinded.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have Resolution 27, 2019. Is there any questions about it? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Simons?
Yes.
Freehan votes yes. Mr. Boda?
Yes.
Ms. Babel?
Yes.
Mr. Batsalas?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Motion carries. We increase the inspector's pay raise. Cindy, do you have anything you want to discuss here?
Provided my monthly manager report. It's a little, looks short, but there's a lot to each one of them that's going on. And just today, we received word from SEMCOG that we received the asset management mapping grant that we applied for last month. So we will benefit from that, and that's already been in process of us trying to gather all of our GIS data, and this will help us greatly with doing that.
When will we get that?
Well, it's an ongoing process. I think the letter says that it's
July
a
10th.
reimbursement, so it'll be starting in this spring probably as we start mapping everything, and we have to submit our receipts for reimbursement no later than June 30th. So I'm working with PCE right now, looking at some options for us to actually do the physical inventory in addition to the data that we already have, which we have to translate. Part of the money will help us translate our data into usable format for SEMCOG, and then hopefully there will be some funding left over for some of the physical inventory as well of things that haven't been mapped yet.
And we didn't have to be a member of the SEMCOG to get this?
Well, fortunately, they allowed us to apply. This is for communities, most of the communities are taking care of this under the SAW grant. And the idea behind SEMCOG being involved is they are trying to create a regional database. And so all communities, if they provide information, will benefit everyone because our infrastructure connects. Each community feeds off of the other communities. So they were able to offer that up to any community who may have not already received SAW grant funding to take care of this part of their asset management.
And we didn't get any of those SAW grants. Remember, we postponed that a few years
Right.
ago,
Yep.
thinking it was gonna come up the next
It
year.
didn't come back.
That's what I voted on for.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying it's something we might want to think. I know Mr. Boda doesn't like it, but we might want to think of joining SEMCOG if we're getting $10,000 from them.
No, you got a lot of
No?
You're all
Okay.
done.
But that's out there. If we want to look into it, we can look into it. And is that all you had then, Cindy?
I think so.
Yeah, and you can read what she's been doing.
Yeah, certainly, if you have any questions, give me a call or stop by.
Okay. All right, announcements. I just have one. Recor Road is open now. They called us last week to tell us it was open. I drove down it the other day. It did a nice job. I don't know if any board members have went down
Yes,
there.
I've gone down there too.
It seems like it's really nice. That brings up one other thing. I'm kind of thinking we should send some kind of a letter from the board to DTE, the Road Commission, and maybe even China Township, because those are the three people that made this happen for us. And China Township is part of it, so I don't know if the board's interested in me getting something together for
They really
that.
had to rush to get it done.
Well, yeah, but we're lucky they got it done.
That's right.
With all that snow. But I just think we should send them a little something, what's the word I'm trying to say?
Appreciation,
A what?
appreciation.
Appreciation, yeah, a letter of appreciation. So maybe we'll get something like that, and we'll sign it for the next board meeting. Okay, that's all the announcements I have. Well, I suppose I could add these others that I was gonna do under member comments. As people are probably aware, they're getting the bike path all chopped up down there on the west side. I think, Angelo, you looked at it. I've had nothing but positive on it.
What's going on by, River? When I was last search tonight, it looks like the bike path is all chopped up on the edge.
On what road?
Oh, for God's sakes, up the north end.
Hathaway or,
No, not that
Reamer?
what do you got?
one. Bree Road, I'm sorry.
Bree Road?
Bree Road. They look like they got the edge of the bike path all chopped up.
Who does?
It looks like it's in our township, it's all chopped up.
Oh, I'll take a run up and look at it.
It's just south of the Bree Road.
And, the board kind of, we approved that the DTE is cutting that at their expense for us. I mean, they're cutting their property underneath their 40 KV line, and they offered to do that. We probably got maybe 10 feet that they're cutting, 8 to 10 feet that they're cutting for us at no charge to us. Then the other thing is, people, I don't know if you're aware, but the county's doing that ditching project on Bell River Road. I mean, the weather's not real conducive for them doing it, but it looks like they're gonna get it done, so.
Looks good, too.
It's nice and deep, and I hope that'll give those people along there some kind of drainage. With that, we'll move on to members' comments. Mr. Horn,
Is there any deadline or date that they're gonna start on the boring of the
Bell River?
Springborn Road and Bell River?
It'll be done this winter. It's gonna be done in the wintertime,
Okay.
so I don't know.
Better hope it's
We haven't
done.
heard no dates on the lift stations on
I thought they'd
Meisner
be
and
started by now.
the lift station on Meisner Road and the boring underneath the Bell River.
The project schedule, I don't know if you've looked at that. I'd have to pull the project
I
schedule
thought it was
up.
February, but
I have to pull the
that's
project
what sticks in
schedule
my
up.
mind when I look at it. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's all I have.
Mr. Pasales?
I don't have anything this evening, Larry, thank you.
Mr. Boda?
Nothing, it's 18, thank you.
Mr. Freehand?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Mrs. Babel? Okay. And I have nothing because I already told you all my stuff. So, hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. It was all good. So with that, I guess we move on to a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn at 8:20.
Support.
We have a motion to adjourn at 8:20. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.